Welcome to the Wellfuel Podcast, your spot for everything gut health, detox, hormones, a healthy home, mold, and everything in between. I'm your host, Isabel Smith. I'm an integrative and functional registered dietitian and the founder of Isabel Smith Nutrition. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Wellfuel Podcast. This is Isabel, and I'm your host. And I'm so excited to be on here tonight chatting with you guys about something that's super near and dear to my heart. And it's something that our clients ask me about all the time. And it's something that I personally experience as well. And that is what to do and how to approach a symptom flare if you're in the middle of some kind of treatment. So as you know here, we do a lot of really complex client work. So clients with complex situations typically reach out to us, or people with typically pretty complex situations reach out to us. So that might mean that they're in the middle of some kind of health crisis or health flare or Lyme disease or gut issue or psoriasis or autoimmune flare, something that's pretty major and serious. And so, wherever you are in the continuum of your own progress in working on moving through something, it can be that whatever it is you're trying to quiet down suddenly kind of rears its ugly head. This can happen. Stress can create, scenarios in which diseases and disease conditions flare. Being thrown off your diet, added stress, having issues with your partner, relational issues, breaking up with a girlfriend or, guy peer, having any and every of these aforementioned things, but also don't forget about changes in environment, changes in weather, all of this kind of stuff can impact. So basically, anything that impacts your body can set off, kind of background flares. This can happen because even if your condition is quiet, nothing is a continuum in the human body. And there's always, changes and feedback that we're receiving from our environment. So as you guys may or may not know, I have finished a 2-year course of Lyme disease treatment last year. And I have been pretty quiet and pretty good. So we were over in Italy. And my number one symptom for Bartonella, I had Bartonella babesia, relapsing fever, and Borrelia, which is Lyme, is this headache. I'm not a headache person, but this very specific headache, and it comes in over my eye and it affects the right side of my temporal side of my forehead. And all of a sudden, we were in this pool of thermal bath, and then suddenly, I got this headache. So I haven't had this situation pop up in a number of months, 6 months or so. And so this was obviously quite alarming for me as I was, trying to suss out like what was going on and what was causing it. So you may or may not know that public pools and hot tubs and stuff retain a ton of viruses and garbage. I rarely put myself in this sort of scenario because I know that my body is sensitive to this kind of stuff. And, I've got a high level of herpes 6, and I had terrible shingles as in college and terrible chickenpox as a kid. And so this for me is a scenario in which I can certainly rile things up. In addition to the fact that, any place with indoor pools and thermals and all sorts of stuff, despite how good the reviews are, etc., there's probably mold somewhere there because, water inside usually creates problems. So I also was aware of the fact acutely that there was probably also a mold situation going on. So I think what's most important in these situations is to kind of take a step back and go, okay, where am I? What's going on? And what conditions that were different did I just put my body in? So I went to bed, woke up in the morning, and thankfully it was fine. A week later, I ended up with COVID, actually, after we got back from Italy. And then shortly thereafter, I got my first cold sore. So, I think obviously my body was ruffled up. I've had a lot of stuff going on with my parents. As of late, both of my parents have been having health issues. And so I know when in times of stress, my body certainly becomes a playground for these viruses and other things to flare. So I have been lucky to kind of had it quiet, but I know that this isn't going to be the first time that it's going to flare up. So the way I like to look at it is I like to gather data. I like to not freak out, but also Of course, this is alarming, but want to make sure that I'm collecting data, understanding the scenarios in which this is happening, and continuing to log in my symptom log, even though on a day-to-day basis, most of my symptoms are pretty quiet. But I keep an ongoing log so that in cases of flares or elevated symptoms, I can make sure that I keep track of all of it so that I can look back in time and kind of gather where we were and what was happening. I had a conversation with my Lyme specialist in the past handful of days, and she and I discussed the fact that this was not going to be the first time that this happened. This certainly won't be the last time that this happens. And it's just something that I need to sort of keep my eye on, and I'm going to do it. But I think as people with health stuff, I think it's important to take a step back and consider, what have you been doing differently? Have you been eating differently? Have you been in an environment that's different? What is your happy state in terms of when you know things will be consistent and quiet? And so therefore you can kind of assess what's changed. You may not be able to always live in the bubble of perfection, but what I can tell you personally is that I know I still have a fair number of things I need to check off my box of issues I want to clear up in my body as I move forward. And even though I just did a parasite cleanse and I'm, back on the toxicity wagon, and before that I was rebuilding my gut, and before that I was in this 2-year post-Lyme state, it's kind of a constant experience of like moving from piece to piece for me, always working on my immune system, always working on supporting my immune system, rebuilding my immune system, and putting it in a place where it can really be healthy and thrive. So I think it's really important as people with bodies to take a step back when we're having a flare-up, to certainly reach out to your healthcare practitioner. Don't do this alone. Understand all the conditions. And it's really important, and I've made a podcast on this just individually, to keep a symptom log for yourself so that you can track this stuff over time, and so that you can just stay on top of all the bits and pieces, because patterns are not noticed in one moment or another. Patterns are noticed from having ongoing data that allows you to track over time. And so that can be the most helpful tool when ascertaining how things happen, when they happen, where they came from, and why they came to be. So for me, what I'm doing right now is just kind of watching and waiting, working on my sleep, working on, sipping my green juice that I have sitting right here next to me as I record this podcast, working on upping my vegetables, being mindful of alcohol, just kind of helping my body calm down, saying no to more plans, saying yes to more stuff for me. That's really important as I work through just supporting my system. And, watching for little cues and signs and symptoms that things are popping up in the background, like this funky cold sore that I had. That is certainly something that I am keeping in my back pocket here. And just watching my HRV, because for me, that's always a tool that I can keep track of and kind of understand. And, when I do have these flares, I really do think about the environment and what's changed and what's new. And so if that isn't something you've thought of, make sure you do. If you need help, or if you're looking for some guidance, feel free to reach out to us. You can hit the contact button through our website, which is just Isabel Smith Nutrition. And make sure that you subscribe for more. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you next time right here on the Wellfuel Podcast. As always, thanks so much for listening to the Wellfuel Podcast. We're so happy to have you. To make sure you don't miss a beat, please subscribe either on Apple or Spotify, because we have episodes dropping once or more a week with tons of great content. If you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything we're doing in the business with our clients and new offers and all the things, make sure that you check us out at Isabel Smith Nutrition on Instagram and IsabelSmithNutrition.com. See you guys soon.